Part 2. Global Copy, My Talent is Called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 11. The next day, Luzaoki came to school, and his classmates were surprised to find that he had an extra weapon in his hand. It was a wooden sword 1.5 feet long with a scabbard. Similar to a child's toy sword. Chen Haoran looked at it for a long time and could only give a thumbs up to praise him for his childlike innocence. Luzaoki didn't care, he had already tried it secretly. As long as the sword is held in the hand with the scabbard, the skill icon will light up normally. It didn't matter whether the sword was wooden or not, what he valued was not how powerful the sword was. As long as you can use it. The enemy can't touch his sword blade at all. Have you ever seen a nearly 10-meter long sword? A skill with a full C rating is just a joke. So this toy sword became his treasure, and the sword never leaves his body no matter where he goes. He would often stop and strike a cool sword drawing pose while walking. Just like in the late middle school years, even Chen Haoran couldn't help but stay away from him. Of course Luzaoki is not just looking cool. He's just looking for a feeling. Look for the feeling of being able to draw your sword easily at any place and in any posture. Time flies, time flies. In the blink of an eye, the adventurer assessment is approaching. A total of 8 students in Luzaoki's class participated in this assessment. Apart from Luzaoki, there will naturally be top students like Zhao Sueking. Secondly, there are Wang Liang, Zhao Peng, Li Bin, and others. When it comes to Wang Liang, there is no need to say a few words. After lying in the hospital for 3 days, Wang Liang came back. Luzaoki was quite regretful that he had not yet found a chance to go to the hospital to see the financier who provided him with 2 skill books. Maybe it's a pity that Wang Liang doesn't have a good taste and can't eat Luzaoki's home-raised local eggs. After Wang Liang came back, the way he looked at Luzaoki changed. It's no longer the look of disdain mixed with a little jealousy. But his expression was still a bit unconvinced. This dissatisfaction became more and more obvious as time went by. Luzaoki guessed that it was his well-trained skills that gave him the confidence. However, Luzaoki was not panicked at all, and even looked forward to it. Maybe the equipment you are short of can be exploded from this finance owner. This assessment is very important. It basically determines your achievements in this life. So I hope everyone will treat it with full concentration. Xiao Yan called everyone together, her pretty face full of seriousness and earnestness, and explained the details to everyone bit by bit. The exam location is at the athletic center in City C. We will notify everyone in advance to gather at the school and take a long-distance bus there. The exam method has been mentioned countless times before. It is conducted through a simulated copy environment. The invigilator will monitor everyone's status in real time through the barrier. Once the danger of serious injury or more cannot be solved, the invigilator will naturally take action, but this also means that you have failed the assessment. Xiao Yan knocked on the small blackboard in front of her, emphasized her tone and emphasized. But don't take any chances. I think that the invigilator will help you to know the truth, but if you encounter danger, you still bite the bullet. Every year, idiots like this die stupidly at the hands of monsters. The invigilator is not omnipotent. There will always be times when the invigilator fails to take action in time. Don't play with your life. Xiao Yan glanced around, her eyes paused on Luzaoki for a moment, and then said, "Do you understand?" "Got it," everyone said in unison. "In addition, there is no limit to the way you can form a team," Xiao Yan said. "Everyone can form a team freely, whether it is 4 people or 8 people. Anyway, the points obtained from killing monsters will be evenly distributed among everyone in the team. As long as you reach 3,000 points, you can pass the assessment. The more people in a team, the lower the difficulty will naturally be, but the points you will get will also be very few. On the contrary, the fewer people in a team, the higher the risk factor, but the points gained from killing monsters will be a lot. But no matter what, please remember, Xiao Yan said cautiously, don't try to conduct the assessment alone. Never try to take the assessment alone. In the past, people who were confident that they could pass the exam alone may only have 1 out of 10,000 people who can actually do it. The rest are either dead or have lost their qualifications to become adventurers. Xiao Yan explained clearly the rules, systems, and methods of the exam one by one, emphasizing the red lines that cannot be touched and the cases that are most likely to fail the assessment. After talking a lot, Xiao Yan sat on the chair, leaned back on the chair, and let out a breath. Okay, there's only so much that the teacher can help you with. I've told you everything that should be said, and a lot of things that shouldn't be said. All I can do now is wish you all successfully pass the exam. Thank you, Sister Yan. Lu Zhaoqi took the lead in thanking the class teacher, followed closely by the others. There is no doubt that as a class teacher, Xiao Yan has indeed fulfilled all her responsibilities. After leaving the office, the lively Zhao Peng spoke first. How about we form a team together? We are all in the same class. We understand each other and can take care of each other. I think it's okay. Li Bin thought for a while and nodded in agreement. I think it's okay too. Several others agreed. Only Zhao Xueqing acted as if she didn't hear anything and left straight away, ignoring Zhao Peng who called her from behind. Zhao Peng looked a little embarrassed and looked at Wang Liang again. Brother Liang, what about you? Do you want to form a team together? You can form a team with me, but I have a request. Wang Liang crossed his arms and snorted, I want to be the captain. Everyone must listen to my arrangements, Wang Liang said to everyone, but looked directly at Lu Zhaoqi. Zhao Peng, Li Bin, and others looked at each other and agreed. Among them, Wang Liang is the most talented and skilled. It is normal for him to be the captain. As long as you don't take it personally, that's fine. If Wang Liang doesn't target them, he will naturally target others. This other person is Lu Zhaoqi. Lu Zhaoqi thought it was not interesting and shrugged. Just as she was about to turn around and leave, she was stopped by Wang Liang. Lu Zhaoqi, where are you going? Aren't you going to team up with us? Lu Zhaoqi waved her hand, no, I wish you have a good time. Lu Zhaoqi, don't think that I can be arrogant just because you win. Wang Liang shouted, I am completely different now than before. Oh. Lu Zhaoqi's indifferent attitude made Wang Liang grit his teeth in anger. Brother Liang, what should we do now? Li Bin asked. Ignore him. Who would team up with him if he has a great talent? In the end, he didn't just come back and beg me in despair. Wang Liang glared at Lu Zhaoqi's back and said bitterly. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 12. Every time an adventurer assessment is held, a huge amount of resources are consumed. With the efforts of the whole country, it can only be held once a year in a provincial capital. If you miss this opportunity, you will have to wait another year. This assessment organized by the school is free of charge, and it also includes food and accommodation, cultivating the flowers of the motherland. However, the number of places in each school is very limited and can only be allocated to a very small number of outstanding students. And if you fail this assessment, you will have to pay out of your own pocket to register for the assessment. The cost is not expensive, about 180,000. Not including room and board costs. Therefore, for children from ordinary family backgrounds, this is basically the only chance they have to take the adventurer assessment. No one would joke about such an important opportunity. Everyone is taking the time to contact their teammates. If you can find classmates, find classmates. If you can't find classmates, just find classmates from the same school. If that doesn't work, you can find classmates from other schools. Anyway, try to get in touch with people who can team up with you as much as possible. This is also another important meaning of adventurer assessment. Teach everyone to unite. A person's power is very limited, especially in a copy. It's very possible that any creature you see has ill intentions towards you and is attacking you. In this case, if you want to survive and clear the dungeon, in addition to being strong yourself, you must also be able to unite other adventurers around you. Say no to infighting. And at such a tense and important moment, what was Luzaoki doing? He was posing on the abandoned field on the side of the school playground. This bastard. Everyone else is like ants in a hot pot, but he is not worried at all. You still want to wander around. It's okay to wander around, but you still don't want to take me with you. I'm so angry. Chen Haoran cursed and climbed the stairs more than 10 meters high. He was so tired that he was panting. As soon as he climbed the last step, he saw Luzaoki with her back to him, making a gesture of drawing a sword. An aura of being a middle-aged person arises spontaneously. This wasteland was originally reserved for the school to build a canteen, but unfortunately, it is still just a wasteland so far. Except for Luzaoki, there were only a few weeds on it, let alone people. No wonder Chen Haoran spotted him at a glance. Chen Haoran was just about to call Luzaoki when he discovered that the sword on his waist had changed. It was as if a large 30-watt light bulb was installed and began to flash white light. As the light gradually reached its peak, Luzaoki slowly grasped the handle of the sword. A crescent-shaped sword energy more than 20 meters long quickly cut through the sky and disappeared into the clear sky. Chen Haoran's mouth turned into an O shape, and his eyes widened in disbelief. Luzaoki's sword was firmly inserted into the scabbard, as if nothing just happened. Chen Haoran rubbed his eyes, almost wondering if he was hallucinating. Eh? Good man, why are you here? Luzaoki turned around and was startled to find that Chen Haoran's face was distorted and he was looking at him with dull eyes. Just, that wooden sword. Chen Haoran was so shocked that he couldn't speak clearly, and he asked Luzaoki with gestures, trying to prove something. I'm afraid you didn't wake up, Luzaoki said without blinking, it's obviously a hallucination. Really, Chen Haoran also began to doubt himself. Steamer than a steamer, Luzaoki patted the wooden sword on his waist. If it is so powerful, can it be in my hands? It seems so, Chen Haoran scratched his head, puzzled. Okay, don't worry. If you don't believe me, just touch it. This is just an ordinary wooden sword. Luzaoki took off the toy sword hanging from her waist and handed it to Chen Haoran. Pay it to me. Chen Haoran's hand that took the sword was trembling a little, but he drew the sword twice into the air, and nothing happened. He himself couldn't help but fell into thought. Luzaoki also felt a little regretful. I am still a bit too showy. You shouldn't be messing around in school. The main reason is that since I acquired this skill, except for finding a remote corner to test my skills when buying a wooden sword, I have never had the opportunity to test my abilities. Having a magical skill but not being able to use it is even more frustrating than walking at night in brocade clothes. Luzaoki would definitely not dare to use it in her own courtyard. The damage to the environment would be secondary, but the main thing would be not to let Lu Wanyi know about it. Otherwise, how could my sister not guess her plan? It can't be used on the road, even if it doesn't scare the children and destroy the flowers and plants, it's not good. Luzaoki thought about it and decided to test the power of his all-out skills in this wasteland where almost no one would come. In order not to make any noise, Luzaoki even aimed her release at the sky. Everything was originally planned by Luzaoki, but he didn't want Chen Haoran to show up halfway. But in the end, Luzaoki was able to figure out the data he wanted. First of all, the difference between drawing sword technique and charging sword technique is charged slash must be charged to a minimum level before it can be released. At the same time, the higher the charge and the more stamina accumulated, the more powerful it will be. The sword drawing technique is different. What it requires is the action of drawing the sword. As long as drawing the sword is satisfied, the sword drawing technique can be released, and the deliberate process will also occur spontaneously. Of course, if you want to achieve the maximum power, you definitely need to do it deliberately. Only when the sword energy is accumulated to the limit can the strongest sword energy be released. At the same time, consumption will also be greatly increased. Luzaoki estimated that the minimum consumption was 80 stamina, so the maximum consumption should be around 400. The power difference is at least 10 times. After returning to the classroom, looking at Chen Haoran who was still in a daze, Luzaoki felt a little apologetic. It's not that he deliberately deceived Chen Haoran. But when it comes to your own safety, you cannot be careless. After all, he couldn't explain why a good charged slash could actually shoot out a huge sword energy of more than 20 meters in his hand. What? You said this is your innate ability. Why are you so obsessed with a great talent? It is precisely for this reason that Luzaoki thought for a long time and decided to form a solo team during the adventurer assessment. If you just earn points. Luzaoki believed that no monster could escape from his 20-meter long sword. Everything within the range of the sword energy is justice. The assessment time is set for Saturday afternoon. Luzaoki and the others will gather and set off on Saturday morning. After the assessment, they will spend the night repairing in City C and take a long-distance bus back early the next morning. Luzaoki breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was the weekend. If it were Monday to Friday, it would be difficult for Luzaoki to find an excuse to explain to Lu Wanyi. If it is the weekend, just say that you are going to see Chen Haoran to play and help him with his homework. My sister, who has always been gentle, would not ask anything. Besides, Chen Haoran was there to help him cover, so it was absolutely foolproof. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, My talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 13. Sister, I went out with a good guy. You don't have to wait for me tonight, I'm at his house. Luzaoki packed her things happily and shouted to her sister who was doing embroidery in the yard. Lu Wanyi stopped what she was doing, turned her pretty face sideways, and looked over with raised eyebrows. Chen Haoran's chubby figure was half exposed at the door, smiling shyly. When he saw Lu Wanyi looking over, he was a little at a loss and didn't know where to put his hands and feet. Hello sister, he said hello awkwardly. Haoran, come in and sit down. What are you doing standing at the door? Lu Wanyi smiled softly and greeted Chen Haoran to come in. No, we're going out soon, right? Luzaoki walked to the door and slapped Chen Haoran. Yes, we have agreed to play at the World Expo today, Chen Haoran nodded like a chicken pounding rice. Okay, then you should pay attention to safety on the road and be careful of vehicles. Lu Wanyi warned a few words, and then said to Luzaoki, do you have enough money? If you don't have enough money, my sister will give you some more. No. Let's go and have a look. It doesn't cost any money. We have a bus card for the whole journey. Luzaoki waved her hand. Okay, I won't talk to you anymore, sister, we're running out of time. Well, then go ahead. Luzaoki, who successfully passed the test, pulled Chen Haoran and left, feeling relieved. Chen Haoran also patted his chest and wiped the sweat from his forehead. He didn't know why, but he always felt a lot of pressure when facing Luzaoki's gentle sister. Maybe this is the majesty of my sister. Lu Wanyi accidentally pricked herself while embroidering. She put her slender fingers into her mouth and pinched them a few times in pain. Lu Wanyi slightly frowned. I always feel like, Luzaoki has been hiding something from herself recently. Forget it, maybe I'm overthinking it. When they arrived at the meeting place, Chen Haoran stopped. "Lao Chi, come on. I believe you will succeed." Chen Haoran clenched his fist seriously and danced it in front of his chest. Lu Zioqi was a little touched. Sometimes this guy is quite reliable. If it doesn't work, quit as soon as possible, come back and learn cooking from me, and together we will make Jinji restaurant bigger and stronger. Chen Haoran kept talking. Lu Zioqi has a black hair and is so unreliable. "Give me back my touch, you bastard. What are you still fussing about? I'm waiting for you." Xiao Yan put her hands on her hips and shouted to Lu Zioqi from a distance. The others lined up and stretched their necks to watch, waiting for him to report and set off. Don't panic. The protagonist always appears at critical moments. Lu Zioqi trotted forward, straightened the equipment around her waist, and said calmly, "Don't force me to fix you at such an important moment." Xiao Yan clenched her fists. Lu Zioqi shrank her neck and quickly slipped into the team. Xiao Yan took the roll call and called everyone one by one. After checking the number of people again, she waved her hand, "Get in the car," and set off. Lu Zioqi and the others were on the second bus. There were only 15 students from 2 classes on this bus. Relatively speaking, the seats are relatively loose, and the atmosphere is relatively relaxed. Several people sit in a group and discuss messy things. Only Lu Zioqi's place had a more solemn atmosphere. Because he sat in a double seat, and the person sitting next to him was Xiao Yan. At this moment, he was sitting upright, staring intently at the few stubborn hairs remaining on the driver's bald head in front of him. Well behaved. JPG. Although he didn't look at Xiao Yan's expression, he could clearly feel the substantial gaze on him. If Sister Yan doesn't sit with the teacher of class 2, why are you here? Lu Zioqi complained secretly. He originally grabbed a feng shui treasure spot first, so he sat in the window seat with the least bumps and the most comfortable position, intending to enjoy the scenery outside the window along the way. As a result, a fragrant wind blew against his face, and Beauty Xiao sat down next to him. Along the way, I leaned against the window and enjoyed the scenery, accompanied by a beautiful woman. It's obviously 2 very happy things superimposed. But why did Lu Zioqi feel so tortured? Lu Zioqi, Xiao Yan called him in a low voice. Here, Lu Zioqi's body tensed upright. "Do you remember what I told you?" Xiao Yan asked. "Sister Yan's sincere teachings, I will always keep them in mind." Lu Zioqi's eyes were blank, but he answered very beautifully. After 3 years of getting along, Xiao Yan knew this guy well. The more respectful and serious Lu Zioqi looks on the surface, the more cynical she actually is. She didn't bother to argue with him anymore and directly told him, "Never try to take the assessment alone. Never try to take the assessment alone. Never try to take the assessment alone." She emphasized the important things 3 times, and finally asked, "Lu Zioqi, have you formed a team?" Lu Zioqi blinked her eyes and said confidently, "I've formed a group. I am also a team duck when I am a solo player." "What about your teammates?" Xiao Yan asked, "Speak out and let me listen." If she hadn't known that this troublesome guy hadn't found anyone to form a team with him these past few days, she wouldn't have been so worried. "You all know Sister Yan." Lu Zioqi didn't want to say it clearly, "she is definitely someone who knows everything." Xiao Yan's chest rose and fell a few times, and she suppressed her temper and said in a deep voice, "Listen to my advice, while there is still time, find a team and join in. Otherwise, give up the assessment." "Give up? It is impossible to give up." Lu Zioqi agreed wholeheartedly, but in her heart she was thinking about how to pass this test. He knew that if he didn't find a few teammates to show Xiao Yan, she would definitely force him to withdraw from the assessment. Suddenly, Lu Zioqi caught a glimpse of a person out of the corner of her eye and had an idea. Zhao Xueqing was sitting alone on the window seat. In order to move easily during today's assessment, she wore a loose sportswear. Her beautiful black hair was tied up into a bow knot princess hair, revealing her slender and fair neck. It was simple and beautiful. She turned sideways and stared out the window, leisurely looking at the scenery. A temperament that can be viewed from a distance but not played with is born spontaneously. Most of the other students glanced at her secretly, but did not dare to come closer. Lu Xiaoqi sat down next to Zhao Xueqing. "Classmate Zhao, do me a favor." Zhao Xueqing turned her head, and Lu Xiaoqi was staring at her with bright eyes. "Last time I agreed to exchange skills with you, does that count as you owe me a favor?" Lu Xiaoqi said shamelessly. Zhao Xueqing's mouth twitched. "If you don't say anything, I'll take it as your acquiescence." Lu Xiaoqi gave a high five. "Do you want to join my team?" Zhao Xueqing said directly. Lu Xiaoqi didn't expect the girl to be so direct. "Let me tell you first." Zhao Xueqing lowered her eyebrows and said calmly, "My goal is not to simply pass the assessment. The lowest goal is to rank among the top 10 in the country in terms of assessment points. So if you join us, have you carefully considered the dangers you face?" Global copy. My talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 14. Who are you looking down on? Lu Xiaoqi looked unhappy. Who would be afraid of this little danger? Then she leaned close to Zhao Xueqing's ear. "I want to discuss something with you." Zhao Xueqing felt uncomfortable with Lu Xiaoqi's sudden approach, but surprisingly she didn't feel any disgust. But the crystal-clear earlobes were suddenly filled with blood. "I won't join your team, I just want you to help me cover." Lu Xiaoqi lowered his voice to the lowest level and spoke softly in the girl's ear. Zhao Xueqing was still a little at a loss, but after hearing Lu Xiaoqi's words clearly, there was a hint of disappointment in her eyes. After a moment of silence, Zhao Xueqing nodded to express her understanding. Lu Xiaoqi took a long breath and said happily, "Thank you, classmate Zhao, I will treat you to dinner another day." Zhao Xueqing turned her face sideways and said in a clear voice, "No need, I'll just treat you as a favor." He doesn't even have the courage to challenge the top 10 rankings in the country. After all, he and I are still people from two different worlds. Lu Xiaoqi touched her head. This little girl felt hot and cold at times, which was quite strange. He curled his lips and had no intention of studying the girl's psychological process. He happily returned to Xiaoyan and reported to his beloved class teacher that he had completed the task. Xiaoyan naturally noticed the whispers of young girls. Although she didn't know what was said specifically, she always felt that things were not that simple. However, Zhao Xueqing had already nodded in recognition, and Xiaoyan finally breathed a sigh of relief. Naturally, there is nothing to say about the rest of the journey. Lu Xiaoqi looked left and right, admiring the scenery on both sides along the way, naturally feeling happy. "Lu Xiaoqi, stop." When he got off the car and headed to the registration office, Wang Liang finally couldn't hold it any longer. He waited and waited, but Lu Xiaoqi never bowed to him. He hadn't heard that he had found a team. They were about to register, so naturally he was a little panicked. He just wanted to suppress Lu Xiaoqi and make things difficult for him. "But I never thought of harming Lu Xiaoqi. What if Lu Xiaoqi is really motivated by this and conducts the assessment alone?" Wang Liang didn't dare to think further. Lu Xiaoqi turned around and looked at the menacing Wang Liang approaching, and frowned. "Even if you are the finance owner, it is a bit annoying to be so entangled. Join our team." Wang Liang couldn't say anything soft to Lu Xiaoqi, and he choked out half of the sentence for a long time. Lu Xiaoqi was confused. "Why should I join your team? I already have my own team." "What? Then you didn't tell me earlier." Upon hearing this, Wang Liang's worries and fears turned into anger. "It's a pity that I'm still here worrying about something happening to you, but it turns out you've already found it yourself. It's okay if you don't come to our team, you haven't made it clear to me yet." Lu Xiaoqi was speechless. "Didn't I reject you a long time ago? and it doesn't matter whether I find a team or not. Seeing his expression, Wang Liang became even more angry and snorted, "That's better. Then our two teams will compete to see who has higher points." "What are you betting on?" Lu Zhaoqi said quietly, and Wang Liang's momentum froze. "Bet, bet, bet. You just know how to bet." Wang Liang turned around and left. "What are you betting on?" Lu Zhaoqi was a little unwilling and shouted from behind Wang Liang. Wang Liang walked faster. He was a little afraid of this guy. It wasn't that he couldn't afford to lose, but he wasn't very sure about winning against him. When he heard him ask this, he was even less sure. Although Lu Zhaoqi is very unpleasant, he is indeed a guy who can create miracles. "Participating alone? Are you sure?" The staff at the assessment registration office looked at the young man in front of him and repeated it. He has been working here for almost 5 years, and this is the first time he has met a single person for assessment. He took a closer look at this brave young man, clean and neat broken hair, delicate features, handsome and elegant face, tall and thin figure. He does look like a sunny and handsome boy. It's a pity, I just don't have a good brain. The staff shook their heads and sighed inwardly, but seriously registered him into the system and gave him something that looked like a bracelet with a code on it, 09527. "This is your voucher for taking the assessment, and it is also a tool for positioning. Don't lose it, otherwise your life will be at risk." Lu Zhaoqi nodded and put on the bracelet. After walking out of the hall, Zhao Xueqing was waiting outside. Since she agreed to help Lu Zhaoqi cover, she was very conscientious. Lu Zhaoqi waved to her and walked over with a smile on her face. "Xueqing, is this the Lu Zhaoqi in your class?" Before Lu Zhaoqi could speak, she heard a frivolous voice coming over. The speaker was a man with yellow hair and glasses, who looked a bit gentle. "I've admired you for a long time, I'm Tang Yu, the #1 high school student in Huangchang." The man with glasses, "Oh no," Tang Yu smiled and cupped his hand. Lu Zhaoqi raised his eyebrows. This person made him a little uncomfortable, so he just said politely out of politeness, "Hello." Tang Yu turned to Zhao Xueqing and said, "Xueqing, you said you were going to bring someone with you before, wouldn't it be him? I heard that he is a legendary great talent. Wouldn't it be a bit?" What Tang Yu meant was nothing more than, "Lu Zhaoqi, I look down on you." "That's right, Xueqing, if you want to compete in the national assessment rankings, it's really not good to bring someone like you who is holding us back." Another girl also frowned and said. Only then did Lu Zhaoqi realize that the 3 people standing with Zhao Xueqing were probably her teammates. In addition to the man and woman, there was also a burly young man standing behind like a bodyguard, with a serious face, and said nothing. Lu Zhaoqi didn't care, she had already gotten used to it, and anyway, it wasn't me who would feel pain in the face. Zhao Xueqing was a little unhappy. She frowned and was about to speak when Lu Zhaoqi spoke first. "No, no, no, don't get me wrong, I don't dare to delay your ranking." Lu Zhaoqi shrugged, turned to Zhao Xueqing and said, "Thank you for this matter. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first." Seeing Lu Zhaoqi's back leaving calmly, Tang Yu was so stuck that he didn't say a word. "I could only mutter, didn't I say he wanted to join our team?" Zhao Xueqing felt a sense of irritation in her heart and glanced at him coldly. "This is a matter between him and me, it's not your turn to interfere." After Zhao Xueqing said that, she turned around and left. Tang Yu suddenly looked a little confused and chased after him. "Xueqing, aren't I thinking about you? He has a great talent and is destined to be different from us." Zhao Xueqing paused, and her voice was as cold as winter. "Once again, it's not your turn to take care of my affairs. Also, don't call me Xueqing, you don't deserve it." Tang Yu's face turned completely dark, but he couldn't lose his temper with Zhao Xueqing, but secretly hated Lu Zhaoqi in his heart. Global copy, My talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying boy has bad luck. Chapter 15. The location of the exam is set in a huge arena. It was also the first time for Luzaoki to see such a large-scale building with her own eyes, which was comparable to the bird's nest in her previous life. Tens of thousands of examins who came to register for the exam lined up on the field in an orderly manner and entered the light gate in front of them in order. That was the examination room created by the sages through a simulated copy of the barrier. The reason why the assessment is so cherished is inseparable from the huge expenditure on maintaining the examination room. Every monster in it is the same as in the copy, but it is not a real monster, but an intercepted monster projection. When monsters are destroyed in the barrier, there will also be a chance that props, equipment, and materials will appear. However, these props are not dropped by monsters, but are items that the staff put into the prize pool in advance. They are rewards given to candidates who perform well. Of course, the props obtained from the prize pool are not specified. There is a large part of luck, and it is also related to the evaluation of monster killing. In addition, in different enchantment scenes, there will also be a chance of special props appearing. This is related to the difficulty of the scene. The more complex the scene, the greater the chance of props appearing. Xiaoyan and other teachers sat in the outer viewing seats, staring at the real-time images projected on the huge screen in front of them, trying to find her students among the countless dark heads. Luzaoki did not stand with the others. After taking a short rest after lunch, he is now full of energy and vitality. 09527. When the staff called his number, he immediately raised his hand and said, "Here it is." This time the staff member was an attractive woman. She pinched her gold-rimmed glasses and frowned slightly. 09527, are you sure you want to enter alone? Then sign here. The woman pointed to the paper list, and Luzaoki looked at it carefully. Disclaimer. Luzaoki. He secretly called out to him, but he still wrote his name on the paper. The woman put away the list, glanced at Luzaoki with a little regret in her eyes, pointed to the light door and said, "Go in." Luzaoki raised her chest and raised her head, holding the wooden sword hanging on her waist, and stepped into the light gate. Each team enters a separate scene after entering the light gate. The scenes and environments are all different, including waterside, desert, forest, etc. How you enter the environment depends entirely on your face. After the assessment officially begins, the situation of each venue will be displayed on the outside screen. At the same time, a steady stream of monsters will be released one after another. Each round of monsters will be a little stronger than before. After killing a round of monsters, there will be 1 minute of correction time. Examiners have to avoid monster attacks and kill monsters in complex scenes, and get as high a score as possible within the specified time. The assessment lasts for 150 minutes. In this high-intensity battle, this is undoubtedly the most severe test for each examinee's physical and mental strength. This is why Xiaoyan has repeatedly emphasized that she must never try to kill alone. When you are exhausted and your skills are on CD, at least you will have teammates to help you cover. If you enter the dungeon alone, you will only face an intensive attack composed of monsters. Of course, if you are lucky, you can also find potions to replenish your consumption from monster drops and scenes. You have to pray that you will always have such luck. People on the venue have already entered the light gate one after another, and the huge square seems a bit empty. After Zhao Xueqing and the others entered the light gate, they had already changed their equipment. Zhao Xueqing held a staff more than 2 meters long and had a cloak on her body, giving her the air of a mysterious mage. Tang Yu put on a leather armor and held a thin sword in his hand. Looking at his dress, he knew he was of the agile attack style. Another girl was holding a magic book and wearing a wizard's hat, standing at the back. The person at the front was the silent young man with an unusually tall figure. He had no other equipment. He just took out a shield half a man's height and stood in front of him. Their venue is an endless grassland. Such a venue has advantages and disadvantages. First of all, you don't have to worry about being attacked by enemies hiding in dark corners, but the monsters will definitely swarm you every round and won't give them a chance to breathe. The numbers directly above your head start counting down. Everyone's expressions began to become solemn, and they knew that the assessment was about to begin. In comparison, Wang Liang's luck was much worse. They entered a swamp. This means that their ability to move is limited. Not only must they be careful of monster attacks, but they must also pay attention to the situation under their feet. Otherwise, if they accidentally fall into the swamp, they will basically be eliminated. What should I do, Brother Liang? Li Bin's talent was relatively weak, and he was a little panicked when he encountered such an unfortunate thing at the beginning. Bah! Wang Liang touched the sword Wang Hu prepared for him, spat, and glanced at him disdainfully. Just kill him and that's it? What are you afraid of? But everyone, please pay attention, there will be one mob left at the end of each round, Wang Liang said. Ah! Why? Li Bin was a little puzzled. When people are in a panic and have no opinion, their rationality will decline. On the other hand, Zhao Peng's eyes lit up and he understood, and he clapped his hands. I understand, you are worthy of Brother Liang. As long as we don't kill all the monsters and leave one mob behind, the next wave of monsters won't appear, and we'll have plenty of time to fix it. Understood? Anyway, we only ask for 3,000 points, and we don't compete for provincial or national rankings. Why kill so fast? When Wang Liang said this, he confidently enjoyed the admiration of others. Not blushing at all. Not mentioning that this method was taught to him by his father. How could he have thought of such a loophole in the first place? While they were talking, the countdown above their heads finally reached 0. Not far away, rows of green-tinted monsters with bodies like 8-year-old children and green-faced and fanged monsters appeared in the field of vision. It's Goblin, a girl shouted. This classic monster that has appeared countless times in books appears in front of everyone for the first time. The goblin was short in stature and not very heavy. He was able to move smoothly in the swamp and rushed towards the crowd quickly. Attack, Wang Liang ordered. Several people with long-range skills took the lead in attacking. As lights of different colors lit up on his hands, a bolt of lightning and a ball of fire fell towards the goblins. The speed of lightning is obviously much faster than that of fireballs. After falling into the group of monsters, it splits instantly and turns into a stream of electric current that jumps on different monsters. The goblins trembled with direct electricity and white smoke came out of their mouths. Then the fireball exploded among them, and many goblins were instantly reduced to charcoal. Serial lightning and explosive fireball. There are actually two C-rated skills. Wang Liang turned his head slightly and looked at Li Bin and Zhao Peng, whose faces were a little pale due to excessive consumption, and his confidence suddenly increased. The screen outside the examination room has lit up again. The large screen is divided into dozens of small screens, which display different examination room images respectively. The images on the screen switch every half a minute. In about 10 minutes, all the examination room conditions will be displayed. It is the turn of a certain team. When assessing the screen, the watches worn by everyone in their team will vibrate, reminding them to perform well and show wonderful assessment content to those watching outside. Next to it is the points ranking that is updated in real time. The top 3 teams with outstanding performance will be given special live broadcast features below the ranking. This year's candidates are not very good. A male teacher sat next to Xiao Yan, who was a little distracted, and kept commenting on everyone's performance. I used C-level skills so early and didn't know how to conserve my stamina. The next few waves of monsters will probably be eliminated immediately. This is even funnier. I'm actually scared by the monster and running around. People's joys and sorrows are not connected with each other. Xiao Yan only thinks that he is very noisy. She felt a little uneasy, Always thinking about that silly boy with grey talent. Yan Yan, look at Team 72. That fool actually entered the dungeon alone, the male teacher was amused, pointing at the screen and laughing. Xiao Yan subconsciously looked in the direction he pointed, her face instantly turned pale, she patted the guardrail in front of her and stood up. Lu Zioki, Xiao Yan gritted her teeth and shouted. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 16. Lu Zioki's luck was not good either. His sight is an endless forest. At the beginning, the goblin almost stole the chicken by jumping under his feet. If he hadn't activated the auto block skill right from the start. No need to know it, just use it and you will be shocked. Auto block is indeed a magical skill. It consumes 100 points of physical strength after being activated, and then it can be held for the whole process without the need to release it again. However, the 100 points of physical strength that Lu Zioki consumed would not be restored. Give a chestnut. Lu Zioki's physical strength is 800/800, but after turning on automatic blocking, it becomes 700/700. 100 points of physical strength are always occupied by the skill, and will not be restored unless Lu Zioki removes the skill. But the fixed consumption of 100 points is well worth it. Let's not talk about the several abilities given by its characteristics. Just saying that it not only amplified Lu Zioki's perception ability several times, but also instilled in him muscle memory of countless blocking techniques, Lu Zioki felt that it was worth every penny. When an attack came, Lu Zioki would often notice it before he even got close to him. Without him even thinking about it, his body would automatically raise his weapon to block the attack. Huh, Lu Zioki let out a long breath and kicked the goblin away. This kind of monster is essentially the same as a child and does not pose much of a threat. The main thing to watch out for is the weapons in their hands and their deadly attacks. Lu Zioki did not immediately use his sword drawing technique. The main reason is that he needs to conserve his physical strength to deal with subsequent monsters. The current monster is not worthy of exposing his strength so prematurely and wasting output. And if you accidentally rank too high due to the high efficiency of clearing monsters, you will be put on a live broadcast and your secret will be made public. When the time comes to cause a sensation, it will be difficult to hide it from my sister. Lu Zioki's plan was to pretend to be a pig and eat the tiger first, and try not to use sword drawing technique to clear monsters unless absolutely necessary. At the last moment, after stopping the live broadcast, Lu Zioki made another wave of points. After all, the reward for entering the list is quite attractive to the impoverished Lu Zioki. So he didn't even use the sword, and it was in vain if he used it. What harm do you expect a toy sword to do? The weapon he is currently using is the nunchucks he pulls out of his sleeves. Two steel pipes brought from the construction site and welded to an iron chain formed this simple and crude weapon. In fact, his history of playing with nunchucks can be traced back to his previous life. 10 years is too little. That's called a miraculous achievement. Many people think it is just a performance prop, but they are totally wrong. The nunchaku can be said to be a weapon with both strength and softness, it can be hard or soft, offensive or defensive. In previous lives, someone has confirmed that using nunchucks can exert hundreds of kilograms of force and easily break sandbags. In this world where everyone practices cultivation, the power is naturally even greater. At least Lu Zioki didn't think the goblin's head was harder than a sandbag. As the last goblin's head was knocked by Lu Zioki, it bloomed and turned into a ball of white light and disappeared, and the first round officially ended. Lu Zioki took a few breaths and couldn't help but stare. He found that two kinds of fruits that he was very familiar with fell from under several big trees. Refreshing rosacea. Restore 120 points of physical strength within 60 seconds after use. Ripe mountain grapes. Restore 120 points of spirit within 60 seconds after use. Luzioki touched her nose. It seemed that this forest was not all bad. Although it increases the probability of being attacked by monsters, there is a chance of dropping consumables when hitting the tree trunk. This wave of blood profit. With the magical skill auto block, the last thing Luzioki was afraid of was a sneak attack. A minute flies by. Luzioki had just finished picking up the consumable props on the ground when the second wave of monsters appeared in front of him. Long claws, agile movements, ferocious fangs, and a chilling scream. It's a cat demon. Luzioki performed a bouncing step, crossing her legs from time to time, switching back and forth, and her nunchucks danced in her hands. The cat demons couldn't restrain their frantic hearts at first. Two cat demons, one on the left and one on the right, pounced on Luzioki at the same time. Papa sounded twice very quickly. The two cat demons flew backwards, their spines had been broken by the nunchucks, and the entire cat curled up into a ball. This time, it was not as soft as if it were boneless, but really had no bones to support it, like a puddle of mud. Not long after, he died of internal bleeding and dissipated into white light. Luzioki hummed and used the Joji stick to perform the double Ji-lun, as if a middle-aged soul was roaring in her heart. Everyone, please turn into light for me. Hey haha. As each cat demon turned into white light, his points began to increase little by little. What is different from others is that because he is assessed by one person, his points increase rate is not slower than that of most teams without anyone sharing it with him. Soon, all 20 cat demons were cleared away. Luzioki cleaned the battlefield and luckily picked up a few consumables to replenish his physical strength. In the next wave, the Tauren appeared in the forest. Luzioki was happy, such a stupid guy couldn't even touch him. Let Luzioki out quickly. Xiao Yan rushed to the game monitoring room and shouted urgently. The staff member who stopped her said awkwardly, "Sorry, madam, the competition has already started. Unless the examiner gives up voluntarily or is in danger of life, we cannot intervene. I am his class teacher, I make the decision for him." Xiao Yan was a little anxious. She glanced at Luzioki's points, which were still rising, and became even more anxious. In her eyes, that was not an achievement that represented honor, but a countdown to Luzioki's life. Sorry. The staff had insisted on their duties. Please also trust our monitoring teachers, they are all very professional. What's going on? The security guard also came over. Xiao Yan collapsed on the ground in despair, holding her head in her hands and closing her eyes in pain. Again. Once again, she watched helplessly as something like this happened in front of her. Two equally young and immature faces slowly overlapped in her heart. When I grow up, I want to be a great adventurer like my sister. I'm determined to be this adventurer. It won't work even if Jesus comes. Xiao Yan hated her incompetence so much at this moment that she could do nothing to stop it. She could only pray and hope that Luzioki would return safely. The 5-meter-tall bull-headed beast collapsed in front of Zhao Xueqing. She frowned and looked at Tang Yu, who was showing off in front of her, and her face became colder. How awesome is it? This is my talent, bloodthirsty. When I cause damage to the enemy, I will absorb the enemy's life to restore my own physical strength, so I can use skills without any scruples. The rapier in Tang Yu's hand, he made a sword flower, raised his head and showed off to everyone. Brother Yu is awesome. The other girl was obviously a bit of a nymphomaniac, and she just followed Tang Yu's example, and her eyes started to shine. Xian Ran restored Zhang Heng's condition and prepared for the next wave. Zhao Xueqing coldly interrupted the interaction between them. Oh! The nympho pouted, and a golden light shot from her magic book to the burly Zhang Heng. After a while, all the scars on Zhang Heng's body disappeared. He silently raised his shield to indicate that he had completed his recovery. Boom! As a bolt of lightning struck down, a purple goblin who was far stronger than the other goblins appeared in front of everyone, holding a sharp scimitar in his hand. Thunder Goblin. Zhao Xueqing's hand holding the staff tightened involuntarily. So soon, an elite monster appeared. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 17. On the big screen, Lu Xiaoqi's points are still increasing. Xiao Yan bit her lip and stared at the screen. Her heart was extremely complicated. Seeing Lu Xiaoqi's points rising rapidly, she was worried, fearing that he would be exhausted and unable to persist. But once the growth of Lu Xiaoqi's points slowed down, she became even more upset. She kept wondering whether Lu Xiaoqi was exhausted and unable to kill monsters. If she didn't look, she couldn't help but think wildly, worrying that the boy who looked so much like her brother would be carried out covered in blood at the next moment. The only thing she could do was to clench her hands and repeat in her heart, God bless. An hour has passed and we will be out in another hour and a half. She silently cheered Lu Xiaoqi up in her heart. Xiao Yan didn't care at all whether Lu Xiaoqi could pass the assessment, she just wanted him to return safely. But the next moment, Lu Xiaoqi's points stopped changing. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes passed in the blink of an eye. But the points of team number 72, representing Lu Xiaoqi, did not move at all. Xiao Yan's heart slowly sank, and her nervous breathing almost stopped. Boom! 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 Bolts of lightning struck down, forming a screen composed of thunder and lightning. Lu Xiaoqi rolled awkwardly to avoid the AoE attack with such a huge attack range. Looking at the scorched black marks on the ground caused by the lightning strike, Lu Xiaoqi was a bit speechless. The purple-skinned goblin slowly approached him with a scimitar in hand. It only took a single wave of the scimitar, and several bolts of lightning fell from the sky towards Lu Xiaoqi. This is the abnormality of the elite monster Thunder Goblin. After 10 waves of Monster C tactics of various styles, the first elite monster finally appeared in front of Lu Xiaoqi. He was immediately pinched. As we all know, metals conduct electricity. Facing the attack of the Thunder Goblin, Lu Xiaoqi immediately threw the Nunchaku in his hand. Even though he was not hit, his hand holding the iron rod was paralyzed immediately. After a few minutes of pulling, Lu Xiaoqi's palm finally regained consciousness. He shook hands, adjusted himself, and began to think in his mind. You can't get close at all. Facing such a dense lightning offensive, Lu Xiaoqi couldn't get even close to the Thunder Goblin without anyone attracting firepower. Often just after advancing a few meters, you have to distance yourself to avoid lightning. It's endless, isn't it? Lu Xiaoqi gritted his teeth. He was extremely disgusted with the extremely high frequency, paralysis effects, large range, and high damage of lightning. His palm slowly lowered, hanging on the hilt of the sword. This can't go on like this. If you continue to struggle with it, it will only consume more energy. The wooden sword began to emit a gleaming white light. Lu Xiaoqi leaned forward and charged forward. Crack! The purple-skinned goblin screamed proudly and pointed with his knife. Several bolts of lightning struck Lu Xiaoqi. This time Lu Xiaoqi did not dodge, but tightened her grip on the sword hilt. I want to see, within 7 steps, who is faster, your lightning or my sword energy. A 10-meter-long light blue sword energy appeared out of thin air. The lightning falling from the sky was also eclipsed by it. Lu Xiaoqi gasped for breath, and the wooden sword was sheathed at some point. Lightning scattered all over the sky but did not cause any harm to Lu Xiaoqi. Because the master who released them can no longer wield a knife. Gah! Thunder Goblin stared blankly at his scimitar that was broken into 2 pieces. A trace of purple-green blood seeped out from his forehead, and his face was full of disbelief. How could Cricket, a human being who was fleeing in panic under its lightning attack, suddenly pull out such an amazing sword energy and kill him for a second? Its eyes became increasingly hollow. A sword mark that cut it straight into two appeared on his body. Before the bloody scene of blood flying, it disappeared in the white light in the next second. Bah! A prop fell down. Luzaoki was shocked. Items dropped. Luzaoki quickly picked it up and glanced at it. It is a C-rated skill book Thunder Attack. There was no time to study what the skill was like. After putting it into the parcel slot, Luzaoki took out a handful of refreshing Loto Jingguo and stuffed it into his mouth. In the next 360 seconds, his physical recovery will increase by 2 points per second. 60 seconds passed in a blink of an eye. Luzaoki adjusted his condition slightly, and the next wave of enemies was already refreshed in front of his eyes. Poisonous Cat Demon. Purple-black hair, green pointed claws, and glowing yellow eyes full of bloodlust and cruelty. The Poisonous Cat Demon is an advanced version of the Cat Demon, a very cunning elite monster. It's very fast. As he moved, Luzaoki could only see an after-image. Swish. Swish. The Poisonous Cat Demon used the surrounding tree trunks to turn into a black shadow and quickly circle around Luzaoki. It was looking for Luzaoki's flaws. Unfortunately, every time there seemed to be an opportunity to attack, Luzaoki would change his movements accordingly, and the original weakness disappeared. Luzaoki sighed, knowing that he could no longer save energy. This cat demon's claws and teeth are extremely poisonous. Seeing blood seals the throat, the power can be said to be half-stepped with a smile. Without the Purification series skills, Luzaoki would not dare to engage in close combat with it. The wooden sword once again lit up with bright white light. The poisonous cat demon stopped on a tree and tilted his head to look at the boy who suddenly stopped moving. Cruel and cunning, it was a little confused. Before he even started to attack, this human being could detect his attack route and adjust his posture in time to respond. Why is it so motionless now? Is it a scam? It thought for a while, but was still dominated by its bloodthirsty instinct. No matter what, let's try killing him first. Then it jumped up high and rushed towards the boy's back and neck. Then, it saw a gorgeous waning moon. The poisonous cat demon turned into white light and disappeared in mid-air. Luzaoki walked to the tree and picked up a few fruit consumables that should have been affected and dropped. The corners of his mouth curled up, obviously in a good mood. He discovered another way to use auto block. It turns out that after sensing an attack, you can not only cancel the skill release and block, but you can also cancel the blocking posture and use other skills. Maybe this is the real use of feature skill switch. You can't fully understand the full meaning of a skill just by looking at the skill description. Xiaoyan had mixed feelings in her heart. Just a moment ago, she was anxious. Luzaoki's points increased sharply, surpassing dozens of teams ahead of him. She just breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that he must have overcome that wave of difficulties. As a result, the next moment, the points skyrocketed again. Suddenly squeezed into the top 10 of the provincial rankings. Xiaoyan was a little sluggish, the boy who smiled playfully in front of her as if he didn't care about anything. She seems a little confused. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 18. Roar, the red-blooded bull-headed leader appeared on stage carrying a giant axe similar to the door panel, and let out a huge roar at the beginning. War roar. The huge sound knocked off the two front rows on the spot, causing continuous damage to everyone present. The weak players even fell into a state of dizziness. Quick! Go and attract his firepower. Wang Liang saw something was wrong and shouted loudly, ignoring the blood seeping from his ears. A short boy gritted his teeth and rushed over with a dagger in hand. Ding! The weak attack pierced the bull-headed leader's steel armor, without breaking the defense at all. Fortunately, it successfully attracted the attention of the bull-headed leader, who turned his head and swung his giant axe at the short man. Boom! The short man successfully dodged the attack, but the boulder behind him was smashed into pieces. He swallowed hard, his eyes looking at the giant axe were a little straight, and he was so frightened that he quickly distanced himself from the bull-headed leader. "Oops," Wang Liang shouted something bad, and Wang Liang immediately shook the two people who were still in a dazed state. "Zhao Peng, Li Bin, wake up quickly. This is their team's only long-range output. Hurry up and use your skills on the bull-headed leader to interrupt his charge," Wang Liang roared. The two of them looked forward with a little confusion of who am I and where am I, following Wang Liang's finger. The bull-headed leader was leaning down, kicking on the ground with one foot, his whole body glowing red, as if he was about to charge. The two of them were instantly frightened and woke up. The short man who was targeted by the Tauren was even more worried. He tried his best to get rid of the Tauren leader's target. Fortunately, at the critical moment, a bolt of lightning successfully interrupted the bull-headed leader's charging skills. A black smoke billowed out of the head of the bull-headed leader and he staggered. The short boy almost sat down on the ground when his legs went weak, with an expression of regret and disaster on his face. "I almost forgot, the target targeted by the bull-headed leader cannot be further than 5 yards away from him, otherwise his savage charge will be triggered. This is the consequence of not paying attention in class and not remembering what the teacher said." But the bull-headed leader had already broken away from his hatred, and stared at the trembling Li Bin with his huge bull's eyes. Watching the bull-headed leader rumble towards the side with a huge axe in hand, Wang Liang gritted his teeth and his whole body burst into purple light again. "Come on. I'm not afraid of you." His eyes were red, and he rushed towards the bull-headed leader with his sword raised. 5 meters away, he used the power of running to jump up high and slashed at the bull-headed leader. Collapse mountain strike. After a fierce battle, the bull-headed leader was covered in blood and fell to the ground. His body slowly disappeared into nothing in a burst of white light. Everyone was panting. Wang Liang looked at the points. 3097. I couldn't help but feel reassured, and shouted to the people behind me, "Enough points. Everyone doesn't have to work hard anymore. The next elite monster, everyone, lure it separately and pay attention to controlling it. As long as you avoid it for the last half hour, it will be considered a final victory." Everyone breathed a sigh of relief when they heard this, and even the excited ones cheered in advance. "Oi!" Wang Liang felt a little tired after using his talent. The test was actually so difficult, far beyond his expectation. At this time, he couldn't help but think of Lu Zioqi. That bastard who doesn't care about anything. Can that guy really pass the assessment smoothly? Thinking of this, he shook his head again. Snored. "Forget it, tell him not to team up with me, he deserves to fail." Xiao Yan looked at the time, there was only half an hour left. Lu Zioqi's points have reached more than 20,000. He could always keep his points steady for a long time, but when he was widened by others and was about to fall out of the provincial rankings, he suddenly exploded and his points skyrocketed. Every time the camera switches to his perspective, you can only see him struggling with the monster and hitting the monster with a broken nunchuk. Naturally, those things that are not even considered equipment cannot break through the defense of elite monsters. But as soon as the camera angle is switched, if he is not careful, even for just a blink of an eye, his points will jump up sharply, and the gap with other people will be narrowed again, and he will remain steadily at the same level. Top 10 in the provincial rankings. This feels like. It's like he's controlling the points. Right? That's it? Xiao Yan remembered the first time she met this guy. For the first time, he took the exam and ranked first in the whole grade. He scored 998 out of 1000 points. Xiao Yan asked him how he got such excellent results. It's very simple, just fill in the blanks and save one step. What? Why do you want to make one less dish? It's easy to get a perfect score and make me proud. Lu Zioqi answered so lightly. Since then, Xiao Yan has known that this seemingly obedient guy is definitely the biggest challenge in her teaching career. Boom. 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 Lu Zioqi's whole body was filled with heat. He leaned against the tree pole and looked at the steel giant approaching step by step. He looked at the assessment time. 28 minutes remaining. That's enough, he said to himself. I stuffed another handful of cool rosacea into my mouth. The buff time, which continues to increase physical strength recovery by 2 points per second, has reached 1800 seconds. This means that he no longer has to lure monsters to help him destroy the surrounding trees, allowing him to take the opportunity to pick up the fallen fruits. The game is almost over. There will be no live broadcast in the last 30 minutes. From the official point of view, everyone's level has been demonstrated in the first 2 hours, and the last 30 minutes are just a test of the examinee's persistence ability. In order to save resources, the live broadcast will end early in the last half hour. Therefore, Lu Zioqi no longer has to deliberately hide his strength. So, come on. The wooden sword on Lu Zioqi's waist once again glowed with gleaming white light. Zhao Xueqing's team is resting. The nymphomaniac gritted her teeth and cast a recovery spell to treat Zhang Heng's injuries and restore his strength. Tang Yu, who claimed that he could unleash his skills infinitely, also wiped the sweat from his forehead with a silk handkerchief. Zhao Xueqing is slightly better. Her talents and skills were the best among them, but she was just a little exhausted at the moment, holding a bottle of recovery potion and drinking it with a frown. Their team's score is now 3.7W. There is a chance to hit more than 4W before the end. But according to past practice, if you want to enter the top 10 of the national rankings, must have at least 4.5W points. Thinking of this, she glanced at Tang Yu. This guy. There is still a backup plan that can't be used. Snort. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 19. Look at Team 72. Outside the stadium, in the stands, someone suddenly couldn't stop exclaiming. What's going on? Is something wrong? Oh my god. This is a one-man team. Xiao Yan was a little distracted when she suddenly heard someone mention the number 72. She was so sensitive that she immediately stood up and looked at the screen. Not only her, but almost everyone couldn't help but stood up when they saw the sudden and crazy increase in points data of team number 72. Participating team, number 72, member number, 09527, total points, 47,620. Xiao Yan was dumbfounded. 5 minutes ago, this guy was only in his early 20s. Why was he stunned for a while? Now it was 4.7W. This score went directly from 11th in the provincial rankings to the top 4 in the national rankings. In the entire Dragon Kingdom, only 3 of this year's examens currently have more points than him. And the difference is not big. Why do qualified candidates want to work hard to get into the provincial or national rankings? This is not just a symbol of honor and status. After entering the provincial rankings, you will officially enter the field of vision of relevant departments, and all resources will be tilted towards you. Every increase in ranking means that the examen's treatment in all aspects will be greatly improved. Not to mention the generous rewards for ranking. The national ranking is the focus of the entire Dragon Kingdom. So under this premise, among the results that everyone has tried their best to achieve, suddenly a dark horse appears on the list with an unrivaled attitude, and everyone will be moved by it. Hey! Why did you turn off the live broadcast at this juncture? Countless people beat their chests and stamped their feet, feeling like cats scratching their hearts. Everyone wanted to know what was the reason. Suddenly, the score of examinee No. 09527 began to skyrocket. Xiao Yan also wanted to know, but she was not in a hurry. She had plenty of time to clean up this dishonest guy. Humph. Maybe it started to explode at the time he specially selected when the live broadcast was turned off. Xiao Yan squinted her phoenix eyes, as if she had seen through everything intelligently. Lu Zioki, what secrets do you have? Just for a moment, Lu Zioki's points changed again. 51,360. After the 15th wave, every time a monster is killed, the points will increase by several thousand. Other teams share the points evenly among several people, but Lu Zioki enjoys it alone, so it is not surprising that the data increases like this. But the strange thing is that they are all examiners, so why do monsters that other people's teams can't kill even with half a day's effort, look like paper in Lu Zioki's place? 1 per minute. Isn't this an instant kill? Everyone gasped, collectively making an indispensable contribution to global warming. It's very possible that he has a rare item on him that only has half an hour to use. Some people secretly speculated, that's why he chose to use such a crucial prop in the last half hour. It might also be some kind of skill or talent he has. It's only half an hour, it's really not long enough. Xiao Yan glanced at the heated discussion and said nothing. Only she understands that given Lu Zioki's family conditions, even ordinary equipment is a luxury, let alone rare props. Besides, even the 4 major families basically don't have many props that can be used repeatedly to kill monsters instantly, right? So if you don't save your precious things for critical moments, how can you display them easily? Not to mention giving it to newcomers for assessment. As for talents and skills. Great talent. The only skills he had were the 2 deerated skills he earned from Wang Liang's father. How powerful can it be? No matter what, transform all the incredible into miracles that only he can achieve. This is this guy Lu Zioki. He remembered that he once pushed some fool who had turned on the purple talent to the ground and beat him violently. Xiao Yan smiled slightly, with a different look in her eyes. Teacher, I underestimated you, Lu Zioki, you can really do it? Oh he. The Snow Queen appeared in the countless frost and snow, showing her existence wantonly. As soon as it arrived, the color of the world changed. Hail mixed with snowflakes raged in the forest, covering the earth with a layer of frost in an instant. It wears a crown on its head, its blue hair has a crystal clear luster, its slim body is wrapped in mink fur, and it wears a pair of 10-centimeter crystal shoes. Its noble and cool look is instantly full. But it only raised its eyebrows and glanced at Lu Zioki before a huge sword energy overwhelmed her. Lu Zioki used this time to accumulate energy, and the moment the monster came, he released the fully charged sword drawing technique. If the damage could be seen, an orange 999 instant kill word should pop up on the monster's head. So far, no monster has been able to take this full damage sword draw blow. Even the process of turning into white light and dissipating it has been omitted. It melted directly in the sword energy. The Snow Queen was no exception. She had just appeared, and in the blink of an eye, only her staff fell to the ground alone. Equipment dropped. Lu Zioki's eyes lit up and he immediately stepped forward to pick up the staff. Snow Queen's support. Basic spell damage increased by 576. Skill attacks add ice damage. Frost series skill CD reduced by 10%. Lu Zioki took a breath of air. Or rare level weapons and equipment. Equipment levels are divided into 5 levels: ordinary, fine, rare, legendary, and mythical. The way to judge them is very simple. Look at the entry. There is only 1 entry for common equipment, 2 for excellent equipment, 3 for rare equipment, and so on. In addition, there are sets that are different from the level classification. When the set is a single piece of equipment, its attributes are very average, and may not even be as good as ordinary sophisticated equipment. However, the more sets you put together, the stronger its attributes will be. Sets are easy to identify as they display unique resonance entries and emit a green resonance glow when placed close to each other. This is the suit. A rare piece of equipment with slightly better attributes, both of which are million level. Legendary equipment is even more valuable. As for mythical equipment, that's truly mythical. At least Luzaoki has never heard anyone say that anyone has. Once an adventurer appears to have mythical equipment, it will definitely be recorded in history. As for the suit, quite a few people have collected it. No matter what, Luzaoki has become so powerful with just this weapon. Place your gear in a package and store it in a safe place. Luzaoki took a short rest and looked at the next refreshed boss. The wooden sword in his hand once again emits a gleaming white light, and it becomes increasingly intense. 80,950. There are still 10 minutes left before the end of the assessment. Luzaoki's points have reached a very outrageous number. Everyone is numb. I watched helplessly as he jumped from 4th in the national rankings to 3rd in a flash, and after a while he jumped to 2nd in a flash. Until the first place is unshakable. The whole process won't take more than 5 minutes. Now everyone believed that Luzaoki definitely had some kind of prop or ability that could instantly kill a single monster. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 20. As the last elite monster fell to the ground, Zhao Xueqing let out a sigh of relief and checked her team's current points on her watch. 46,085. Stable. Zhao Xueqing calmed down and glanced at Tang Yu, who was restraining his arrogance. She agreed to attend the banquet hosted by Tang Yu as a condition, and finally got his all-out effort. Although Tang Yu initially said it was a candlelight dinner, it turned into a celebration banquet under her insistence. Zhao Xueqing finally saw Tang Yu's hidden trump card. In other words, Tang Yu deliberately showed off to everyone. C-rated, 6-star red flame tactics. A rare skill that consumes both mental and physical strength. After it is turned on, it consumes a certain amount of physical strength and energy and turns it into red flames that wrap around the whole body. In this case, Tang Yu's attributes were greatly enhanced, his speed was as fast as lightning, and the attack from the rapier could easily penetrate the thick armor of the steel behemoth. It is precisely because of this that they were able to complete the counter-attack at the last critical moment and score 4.6 W points. But the more this happened, the more Zhao Xueqing felt disgusted with this young man who used this as a threat. Knowing that this test was so important to her, she deliberately took advantage of others' danger. A sneer appeared at the corner of Zhao Xueqing's mouth. It's less than a minute before the assessment ends. The nymphomaniac has already begun to circle around Tang Yu, with admiration bursting out of her eyes. Zhang Hong sat silently on the ground leaning against the rock, the several hideous wounds that penetrated his body were ignored by the nymphomaniac. He didn't say anything, just stroked his shield, took out a bottle of secondary potion and poured it into his mouth. Here, Zhao Xueqing walked up to Zhang Hong and handed him a bottle of special healing potion. Zhao Xueqing saw everyone's performance one by one. Compared to Tang Yu, who deliberately paddled without exerting any force, and the nymphomaniac girl who kept surrounding Tang Yu, Zhang Hong, who is unknown, works hard, and has no regrets, is even more attractive to her. Zhang Hong silently took the potion and after using it, the wound recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. After his condition improved, his physical strength recovered much faster. Zhang Hong supported his body and stood up, looked down at the girl, and thanked Zhao Xueqing in a hoarse voice. Zhao Xueqing waved her hand nonchalantly, leaning on her staff and waiting for the countdown to end. As the examination time came to an end, the elite monsters that were still baring their teeth and claws roared unwillingly and were teleported away by an invisible force. At the same time, the previously closed light doors were opened in each team's examination room in turn. The first one to come out of the light gate is undoubtedly Team 001, then 002, 003. Most of the examines who were still staying in the examination room were smiling and looking excited. Teams that successfully passed the assessment time basically met the assessment condition of 3,000 points. Students who failed the assessment were already teleported out of the examination room by the invigilator through their bracelets. Some unlucky ones may still be lying in the rescue room for emergency rescue, or even worse, they may already be a corpse when they are teleported out. But these are in the minority after all. Wang Liang stepped out of the light door with his head held high, and the 5 classmates following him were all smiling. Their final points were fixed at 3,684. This result is not considered excellent, but compared to those examines who passed by just passing the passing mark, this is undoubtedly a very good result. Although he did not meet the requirements for being on the provincial list, Wang Liang was already satisfied. After all, I am from an ordinary family, and my teammates are also average. Compared with those guys who want to hit the provincial and national rankings with high-quality equipment, they are naturally incomparable. The first time he came out was not to congratulate others that he had passed the exam. Instead, he looked for Lu Zhaoqi in the examination room rankings. He has memorized Lu Zhaoqi's number, 09527. For this old enemy, his level of attention is naturally unusual. Based on this number, he started looking for Lu Zhaoqi's ranking from the bottom up from the team with 3,000 points. After looking for a long time, the points reached 1,000 and I still couldn't find Lu Zhaoqi's number. Wang Liang breathed a sigh of relief, but felt a little disappointed. This time I finally defeated him. But what's going on with this sense of loss? Brother Liang, look at the number 1 ranking. There's a BT in the examination room in our province, Zhao Peng suddenly exclaimed. Wang Liang responded and his head exploded with a buzz. I saw clearly displayed on the ranking list. Number 1 participating team, number 72, member number, 09527, total points, 99,999. Wang Liang. He didn't even think about swearing, he just opened his mouth and lost the ability to speak. No 09527, single assessment. Top of the rankings. Is this Lu Zhaoqi? Even the points display was blown up by him. Perhaps no one has ever thought that an examinee could obtain more than 100,000 points by himself. The upper limit of points has always been 5 digits. Under normal circumstances, it is absolutely impossible for a team to obtain more than 100,000 points. Even if you also have the ability to kill monsters instantly, you have to take into account the refresh interval of each round of monsters and the overall duration of the exam, plus the points sharing for a team of at least 3 people. But all this was broken by the sudden emergence of Lu Zhaoqi. When his points appeared on the list, not to mention the local examination center, examines from all provinces across the country were in an uproar. Everyone was discussing how he did it, or whether there was an abnormality or whether the points were wrong. In another room, there are more than a dozen sci-fi projection equipment placed next to a huge conference table. The person in charge of the examination room stood aside respectfully. A dozen figures projected by the projection equipment were silent around the middle screen. The screen was playing a loop of footage of Lu Zhaoqi drawing his sword and releasing his sword energy to instantly kill various elite monsters. This should be the wooden sword in his hand. One of the projections spoke first. When you see him using other weapons or with his bare hands, his performance is amazing but not bizarre. Only when he holds the wooden sword can he unleash such astonishing damage. Another projection retorted, not necessarily, maybe it's a limited type of skill. Only with a sword can it be effective. Everyone has read this examiner's information. Rather than acquiring such a rare skill, I believe that he accidentally obtained a consumable item. A female voice came out. Okay, the projection in the center of the crowd tapped the table with his index finger. This time we are not gathering everyone to discuss how he did it. It's his amazing achievements. Whether it should count or not. After all, his move can be regarded as a first in history. It would be fine if it was due to his own natural abilities or skills, but his actions obviously include over-reliance on props. If we rashly conduct a detailed investigation into him, it will break the rules we have established over the past century. But if the results are announced without a clear investigation, I'm afraid many people will be dissatisfied and cause commotion. And once this move is recognized by us, I'm afraid that future assessments, it's even more difficult to end. After all, he is not the only one who has this type of props. Everyone here, which family doesn't have this type of props? If we use such props for assessment in the future, how can we talk about strict fairness? Wouldn't the national and provincial rankings become a joke?